Hello, happy Easter. Welcome to Bible Study. I'm Chaplain Harold Epley. Good to see you again. Glad you're tuning in on channel 955 for this week's continuation of the Bible study based on the book by Max Lucado, Traveling Light. And this is a look at the 23rd Psalm. He's been going through it verse by verse and talking about how this very beloved ancient piece of wonderful literature and poetry that graces our scriptures is also has a message that speaks to all of us today. And we've moved into chapter 6, and today's chapter is entitled What Ifs and How Wells, the Burden of Worry. And he's moved on now to look at the second part of verse 2 of the 23rd Psalm. He leads me beside the still waters. Your 10-year-old is worried, so anxious he can't eat, so worried he can't sleep. What's wrong, you inquire? He shakes his head and moans, I don't even have a pension plan. Or your 4-year-old is crying in bed. What's wrong, sweetheart? She whimpers, I'll never pass college chemistry. Your 8-year-old's face is stress-struck. I'll be a rotten parent. What if I set a poor example for my kids, he says. How would you respond to such statements? Besides calling a child psychologist, your response would be emphatic. You're too young to worry about those things. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. Fortunately, most kids don't have such thoughts. Unfortunately, we adults have more than our share. Worry is the burlap bag of burdens. It's overflowing with what ifs and how wells. What if it rains at my wedding? How will I know when to discipline my kids? What if I marry a guy who snores? How well we pay our baby's tuition? What if, after all my dieting, they learn that lettuce is fattening and chocolate isn't? The burlap bag of worry, cumbersome, chunky, unattractive, scratchy, hard to get a handle on, irritating to carry and impossible to give away. No one wants your worries. The truth be told, you don't want them either. No one has to remind you of the high cost of anxiety, but I will anyway. Worry divides the mind. The biblical word for worry, let's see if I can say it, merimnao, is a compound of two Greek words, merizo, which means to divide, and nous, the mind. Anxiety splits our energy between today's priorities and tomorrow's problems. Part of our mind is on the now, the rest is on the not yet. The result is half-minded living. That's not the only result. Worrying is not a disease, but it causes diseases. It has been connected to high blood pressure, heart trouble, blindness, migraine headaches, thyroid malfunctions, and a host of stomach disorders. Anxiety is an expensive habit. Of course, it might be worth the cost if it worked, but it doesn't. Our frets are futile. Jesus said you cannot add any time to your life by worrying about it. Worry has never brightened a day, solved a problem, or cured a disease. How can a person deal with anxiety? You might try what one fellow did. He worried so much that he decided to hire someone to do his worrying for him. He found a man who agreed to be his hired worrier for a salary of $200,000 per year. After the man accepted the job, his first question to his boss was, where are you going to get $200,000 per year? To which the man responded, that's your worry. Sadly, worrying is one job you can't farm out, but you can overcome it. There is no better place to begin than in verse 2 of the shepherd's psalm. He leads me beside the still waters, David declares. And in case we missed the point, he repeats the phrase in the next verse. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. He leads me. God isn't behind me yelling, go. He is ahead of me, bidding, "Come on." He is in front, clearing the path, cutting the brush, showing the way. Just before the curve, he says, "Turn here." Prior to the rise, he motions, "Step up here." Standing next to the rocks, he warns, "Watch your step here." He leads us. He tells us what we need to know when we need to know it. As a New Testament writer would affirm, from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16, we will find grace to help us when we need it. Listen to a different translation. "Let us therefore boldly approach the throne of our gracious God, where we may receive mercy and in his grace find timely help." God's help is timely. He helps us the same way a father gives plane tickets to his family. When I travel with my kids, I carry all our tickets in my satchel. When the moment comes to board the plane, I stand between the attendant and the child. As each daughter passes, I place a ticket in her hand. She in turn gives the ticket to the attendant. Each one receives the ticket in the nick of time. What I do for my daughters, God does for you. He places himself between you and the need. And at the right time, he gives you the ticket. Wasn't this the promise he gave his disciples? He said, "When you are arrested and judged, don't worry ahead of time about what you should say. Say whatever is given you to say at that time, because it will be not really you speaking, it will be the Holy Spirit." You can find that in Mark 13:11. Isn't this the message God gave the children of Israel? He promised to supply them with manna each day, but he told them to collect only 1 day's supply at a time. Those who disobeyed and collected enough for 2 days found themselves with rotten manna. The only exception to the rule was the day prior to the Sabbath. On Friday, they could gather twice as much. Otherwise, God would give them what they needed in their time of need. God leads us. God will do the right thing at the right time. And what a difference that makes. Since I know his provision is timely, I can enjoy the present. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes up. Matthew 6:34. That last phrase is worthy of your highlighter. When the time comes. I don't know what I'll do when my husband dies. You will, when the time comes. When my children leave the house, I don't think I can take it. It won't be easy, but strength will arrive when the time comes. I could never lead a church. There's too much I don't know. You may be right, or you may be wanting to know everything too soon. Could it be that God will reveal answers to you when the time comes? The key is this: meet today's problems with today's strength. Don't start tackling tomorrow's problems until tomorrow. You do not have tomorrow's strength yet. You simply have enough for today. More than 80 years ago, a great Canadian man of medicine, Sir William Osler, delivered a speech to the students of Yale University entitled "A Way of Life." In the message, he related an event that occurred while he was aboard an ocean liner. One day, while he was visiting with the ship's captain, a loud, piercing alarm sounded, followed by strange grinding and crashing sounds below the deck. "Those are our watertight compartments closing," the captain explained. "It's an important part of our safety drill. In case of real trouble, water leaking into one compartment would not affect the rest of the ship. Even if we should collide with an iceberg, as did the Titanic, water rushing in will fill only that particular ruptured compartment. The ship, however, will remain afloat. When he spoke to the students at Yale, Osler remembered the captain's description of the boat. Each one of you is certainly a much more marvelous organization than that great liner and bound on a far longer voyage. What I urge is that you learn to master your life by living each day in a day-tight compartment. And this will certainly ensure your safety throughout your entire journey of life. Touch a button and hear, at every level of your life, the iron doors shutting out the past, the dead yesterdays. Touch another and shut off with a metal curtain the future, the unborn tomorrows. Then you are safe, safe for today. Think not of the amount to be accomplished, the difficulties to be overcome, but set earnestly at the little task near your elbow, letting that be sufficient for the day. For surely our plain duty is not to see what lies dimly at a distance, but to do what lies clearly at hand. Jesus made the same point in fewer words. In Matthew 6:34, he said, "So don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will have its own worries. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Easy to say, not always easy to do, right? We are so prone to worry. Just last night, I was worrying in my sleep. I dreamed that I was diagnosed with ALS, a degenerative muscle disease which took the life of my father. I awakened from the dream and right there in the middle of the night began to worry. Then Jesus' words came to my mind, "Don't worry about tomorrow." And for once I decided not to. I dropped the burlap sack. After all, why let tomorrow's imaginary problem rob tonight's rest? Can I prevent the disease by staying awake? Should I postpone the affliction by thinking about it? Of course not. So I did the most spiritual thing I could have done. I went back to sleep. Why don't you do the same? God is leading you. Leave tomorrow's problems until tomorrow. Arthur Hayes Sulzberger was the publisher of the New York Times during the Second World War. Because of the world conflict, he found it almost impossible to sleep. He was never able to banish worries from his mind until he adopted as his motto these 5 words: "One step enough for me." It's taken from the hymn, "Lead, kindly light." Lead, kindly light. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step enough for me. God isn't going to let you see the distant scene either. So you might as well quit looking for it. He promises a lamp unto our feet, not a crystal ball into the future. We do not need to know what will happen tomorrow. We only need to know that he leads us, and as Hebrews 4:16 says, we will find grace to help us when we need it. That concludes chapter 6. And a lot, again, to think about there, because we are all prone to that burden of worry. I have a few discussion questions for you to reflect on as you think about this chapter and think about how it applies to your life. He, at the beginning of the chapter, talked about those what-ifs and the how-wells. And just take a moment in your own life to think, what are the what-ifs and the how-wells? How will I be able to do that? What if this happens? We all do that from time to time. Think about some of those that most burden you and how you typically deal with them. And then he also talked about how worry divides the mind, and that the biblical word for worry actually means, it's 2 words. It's a compound word put together with the word to divide and then the word the mind. And so think about that. How does worry divide your mind? And what he meant by that, he says, it divides us between the present and the future. We might be kind of living in the present, but part of us is also worrying about what could happen in the future. So how does that prevent you from really living fully in the moment and enjoying all the blessings you have right here, right now? We all do that, of course, from time to time, but just thinking about that and thinking about what causes you to do that can be helpful as you think about this. Of course, then he talks at the end about how we need to just trust God. That's part of faith. We trust that God will provide us with what we need when we need it. And so when tomorrow comes, we will have the strength we need tomorrow. But we can't be jumping to tomorrow when we're living in the present. A few other questions. This is always good to do. Think about some of the things you worried about in the past that never really happened. It's been said we worry, 95% of the things we worry about don't come true. And I think that is often the case. Think about some of those things you were worried about. Maybe you can't even remember anymore because we tend to forget about them once the time passes. But think about some of those and think about how they really didn't happen, or how when they happened, you did have the strength to meet them. And that strength, of course, coming from God. Well, you may have noticed I've got my Brewer shirt on. That's because today is opening day of the baseball season. It's Easter, it's spring. All those great things that happen at this time of year are happening. And so it's a good time to reflect on this 23rd Psalm because it speaks so much of the natural world and has those wonderful images of wandering through the fields and being led by the shepherd. Next week we'll continue with chapter 7. It's entitled, It's a Jungle Out There, the Burden of Hopelessness. And we'll be moving into verse 3, He Restores My Soul. Hope you're having a great week. God bless you. We'll see you again soon.